Good to see you again.
Good to see you. How's life?
Yeah, well, some big changes since we last spoke. We had been in process to adopt a little girl for about 2 years now, so she came home to us about a couple of months ago.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I remember years ago, I just had a memory that came into my mind of a friend of mine that
Hmm.
that that got a child from China, I believe, and how absolutely long the process was and how exhilarating it was when it came together. And that
Hmm.
journey of getting to that point is just such a arduous. How long did it take?
Well, we adopted from Taiwan, and
Okay.
so every country is different.
Yeah.
But when we were living overseas, we had our son, and we were perfectly happy with one kid. And but the Taiwanese social services is actually quite strong. So any child who enters the system really is in need of a family.
Yeah.
And so we felt comfortable that it wasn't like kind of the sketchy situation that you sometimes hear about, you know. And so it's more kind of like you put your family profile into the system, and it's more just like, hey, if there's a kid who's in need and you seem like a good fit, then we'll start the process. And so it was very uncertain from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so we were in the system for about 5 years, the whole 5 years that we were there. Never got a call. And so we're like, okay, it's probably just not in the cards. Actually, really happy that,
Yeah.
there's not necessarily a need. But then we moved back to the States, and 3 months later, they're like, hey, we got a kid.
Wow.
So we're like, okay, well, we're not actually there anymore. Is that still all right? So we had to update the whole process to an international adoption situation. And so that ultimately kind of because of the international laws and prevention of child trafficking, that ended up taking two or maybe like a year and a half for all of the red tape to kind of take care of itself. And so we were basically doing Zoom calls with her every month until then. So she's almost 5 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a really strange kind of journey, turn of events. But I think from the beginning, because we were already of the mindset that, hey, this might not happen, the fact that it did end up working out was is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And then you have the new book out, correct?
Yes. So it's all kind of happening all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the book and even in regards to the book, how
Hmm.
much of this 5 year journey of adoption and this new life that you're living right now has been a part of this? How do those feed off of each other, those two levels of living and creation?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, especially given the transition that we had gone through with and potentially expanding our family and then also working on this book in particular. So the book Little Helper, really the main theme is about how do we find the appropriate ways to invest in mutual giving, invest in the community, put ourselves where our help is needed most, right? And so to have that time with an adoption journey where I feel like when we started, we were introduced to a lot of different families with different reasons for adopting. Some a little bit more self-interested than others. Some were very interested in growing their family and thinking about what a child would add to their lives and how it would enrich their lives. And it's not always that way. It's a spectrum, right? Like some people are very focused on that, whereas others are extremely focused on what the child needs, what they're willing to sacrifice in order to give the child what they feel like is the best possible start in life. And so for us, for me, especially to look at the book, Little Helper, in the context of also myself personally helping a child, it did feel like very integrated because the story is told from the perspective of a child wanting to help adults. But while I was writing it, I was also approaching it, well, how does an adult ultimately do their part to help a child. And so it's a this balance of perspective, what is needed versus what is our own imposition of what somebody else needs, and me putting myself in a position where it's just like, no, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to impose what I think you need onto this other person. So it was extremely self-reflective and kind of the perfect project to happen simultaneously.
So the illustrations are very, very alluring. How did the illustrations come about? How did the whole packaging and the look of the book come about?
So it's still largely in the same vein as my previous work with the Oxford Boy and
Mhm.
Big Enough, and it has the traditional Chinese painting aesthetic. How it expanded and changed over time is with my previous two books. A lot of it kind of took place outside, a lot of nature inspired things, but because Little Helper is more community focused, it's about the town and the villagers who live there. I was able to basically dive into little scenes, domestic scenes, kids flying kites, more pastoral agriculture, and even like interiors, like you see inside a traditional kind of Ming Dynasty home and what might be found in a kitchen there. And so the pictures were a lot of fun to draw, just to borrow from some of the works and the images that you see in the previous books, but then also kind of you get a peek into how this world actually looks differently from different angles and from different scenes. Yeah.
So the one thing I keep thinking about with the book is, America's a strange place right now. There's a lot of
Which
things,
part? Which part, Joe?
all of it. I
Yeah.
mean, like we got this craziness with immigration. We're in a war now. People are
Yeah.
stressed out. We get this clown show thrown all the time. And I think the thing about what you're doing with your books is we're teaching the kids that as adults, we can be sane, we can be compassionate, we can be kind, we can embody all of these things that we're not seeing from levels of our leadership that are happening right
Mm-hmm.
now. How
Mm-hmm.
much of living in this world of all of these things that are swirling that we haven't seen in a long time or ever in this country is a part of the message you're trying to put out to people?
Well, I think that you bring up an interesting point because I would say American memory is quite short. And I think that every generation encounters something that I don't know, we feel that they haven't been seen before. And maybe that's because we've been extremely lucky, or that we live in pockets that have not experienced this. And so everything feels very new, very raw, and highly emotionally charged. And I think there's this American attitude where it's just like, hey, we want to do something. We want to help, we want to act to make things better. And I think that's fantastic. I think there are a lot of people who previously did not feel that they had a position or a need to act or do anything beyond their immediate circle, their immediate concerns. And I think that this to look at everything that's going on as an opportunity to expand our perspective and understand how the things that we do can ultimately impact others in a positive way is a very good thing. At the same time, there is, yeah, the American timeline is so short. I was talking to my dad and he was like, we were feeling the same angst in the 70s in the Gulf War. And I think that there's just not a lot of memory
Right.
especially in young people, to look back and realize like everything that is happening has been growing, I think, and accumulating over several decades now. And it's important to recognize, like, hey, like what is something we can do now in order to address those challenges. But then if you look at like I'm just going to take China because that's kind of the background of my works and Little Helper is that like China's thinking generations. Like they're planning 30, 40 years in advance at this. I mean, they've been doing that for hundreds of years. They think in centuries.
Yeah.
And so the groundwork I feel like that a lot of East Asian countries take is a very slow, methodical, patient kind of foundational work in which they are okay not seeing the immediate results of their help, of their actions, of their whatever, for better or for worse, like
Hmm.
their progress, even if it's taking them in a very bad direction for the vast majority of the population, the leaders are willing to wait it out. Whereas I think in the States, it's like there is like these big swings back and forth because the leadership wants to like change things right away. And ultimately, like, I really don't know which is the better route. There probably isn't a good or a bad. It's just what it is. But yeah, I would say that that's kind of what I've taken away from seeing how the States has reacted to kind of these emotional highs and lows and infighting and everything like that, where it's just like there is a lot of short-sightedness. And I think there's just a lot of struggle in like what to do in the here and the now, but not a lot of planning for, okay, well, what is the vision? If we can all agree that this isn't what we want,
Right.
like we need to fill that gap with something that we can agree on. So then we have something to work towards, right?
It's interesting because we're coming up on the 250th anniversary. But when you
Hmm.
talk about China and you talk about even Europe and other countries, they've been around, they've gone through all these different levels of growth. I mean, if you look at the
Right.
timeline of this country, we're still in our teen years. And then you
Hmm.
look at other countries and they've already been down this route. That's probably why there's a level of patience with
Yeah.
people that are in control of other countries because they've been on the forefront. For instance, in Europe, I mean, they went through both of those world wars and their
Oh my
entire
gosh.
civilization
Yes.
was destroyed, right?
Hmm.
So they're not
Yeah.
going to leap into conflict. They're not going to do things to get
Right.
back in that situation. So I think there's a lot of it that's a part of that. But I think more than anything else, I think having books and art and music and things like that with positive messages being put out in the world
Hmm.
is kind of a social glue that's going to help the younger
Yes.
generations, the
Yeah.
kids, which
Right.
is
Right.
which is really what we need to do. We don't need to
Hmm.
perpetuate
No, no.
this thing that's
This-
happening now that's
Right.
really negative. We need to
Yep.
have positivity out in the world.
Hmm.
So, what do you do on book release day? Did this come out on May 5th?
It did.
Okay. Do you have some special thing that you do? Do you have champagne that's corked at midnight? Is there confetti flying? What do you do?
I wish. I mean, I feel like with the new 4-year-old, it's the partying was extremely limited. But no, I mean, I live in a small town in Rhode Island. I worked with the local independent bookstore. We had a story time with kids. We drew together. It was low key. It was fun, and mostly it was just an appreciation to just sit with a book and take time with it and appreciate the art. And I feel really lucky to have been able to do that. And I also just, I don't know, I guess it's less of like a single event, but just
Yeah.
kind of more of visiting different children's museums, getting the to share the book with different families. I'm actually gonna go to the Mystic Aquarium. It's a world-class aquarium just 20 minutes away, and I'm going to be painting with a ray, like a stingray.
Oh, cool.
And that's going to be part of an exhibit here in Westerly too. So it's just like kind of like all these little different things. The community is like coming out to support the book and me as an artist and just giving opportunities to share it with the town. And so that's mostly how I've been celebrating, and it helps to have these activities lined up for yeah, just for my kids, for the other
Yeah.
kids, especially as summer is coming up.
And that's fun to have these books, having kids too, and having this to kind of be out there forever for them to enjoy. I mean, is that something that you think about on the back end? How much fun it is to be a parent, to be able to
Hmm.
share these creations with them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think about the books themselves as sort of a legacy because I think that there is a lot of churn in the children's literature market.
Yeah.
But I think at least for now, I do think that Little Helper especially is a very timely book. And for the little kids who are able to be able to hold it and appreciate the message, I think it can be a very valuable thing to share.
So The other thing, having a jazz radio show, when I talk to musicians about albums, they're already thinking about the next one. So they produced it, right? They created it.
Yeah.
They've gone through all of this editing and post-production, and now they're in promotion and they're already moving on. So I think about
Hmm.
with you having this line of books, are you already on to the next one? How do the ideas come about? What are you thinking about now? Or are you just purely in the, I have a book, I'm promoting it, I'm going to lay low?
Yeah, the timeline, I'm sure it's similar music production, but it's like in traditional publishing. I mean, Little Helper, it was out of my hands a year ago.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I have started kind of the next project in the line of books. So, because Oxford Boy is based on three of the Chinese philosophical teachings. So, Big Enough was about Buddhism, Little Helper is Taoism. So, the last one in the mix is Confucianism, which is, I guess, maybe more in line with the American mindset of, oddly enough, of, just basically taking the right action, treating people right, doing the right thing. And so that story and proposal is already kind of not totally put to bed, but it's in the works, and I'm going to be shopping it around. And then I also have, yeah, just some other picture book ideas. One of them is inspired by my dad's time in the military during the 1970s. A little bit, I wouldn't say anti-war, but kind of finding the right balance between military engagement and also what you can learn in the military as far as discipline, care, and structure. And so, kind of good sides and bad sides, I guess, to to
Yeah.
having the world's largest military in the world. And so, kind of, how do you take lessons from kind of the structure of the military and then actually apply it to building a country versus attacking another entity? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So if anybody wants to get the book, they want to get your previous books, any of the
Hmm.
good business, where can
Yeah.
they go? How can they do that?
Yeah. So Oxherd Boy, Oxherd Boy, BOY.org is basically where you can find all the info for all the books, or you can go to reginalink.com, which is my author website.
Okay. And I have all of the links, so I will make sure to put those in the show notes. I
Mhm.
always love this opportunity to be able to catch up, to make these connections in the community and to catch up. So thank you for reaching back out. I'm glad that we
Yeah.
connected. Best of luck with the adoption, the book, and everything that's going to come.
Thank you.
And